said to me, I want you to become a helper. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. But that started a journey that culminated 8 years later, or 7 years later, actually, after he told me, I want you to be a helper indeed. And I want you to open yourself to the helper. 7 years later, he was saying to me, now I want you to begin to run a conference, and it will be called the Return of the Ezra. I didn't know what the word Ezra meant. Yes. So I had to go and research what it meant. Yes. And then I realized that it meant helper. Yes. So I said, okay, so we're doing this. And he said, yes, do it. But I also remember that I looked at my space. I looked at my resources, and it was not enough. So I said, Lord, I'll do what you've asked me to do, but I will do it when I have the money. So, of course, I ran to Mark, who in that time was my source, even though I didn't know it. And I said to him, God has asked me to do a conference. And he said, really? I said, yes. I said, what kind of conference? I shared the vision with him. And he said, how much will it cost? I said, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I think it will cost a lot of money. And then he says to me, okay, when do you want to do it? Initially, I wanted to run this conference in April. In April of 2008. So I said, we'll do it in April of 2008. Then he says to me, but our rent falls due in that time. He said, but don't worry, the moment we finish paying our rent, we will do the conference. So I said, okay. April came and went, and then of course no conference. Then in May came, went, nothing. In June I fell ill. I fell ill on a Sunday night or early hours of a Monday. Made it into the hospital about 7 a.m. or maybe between 6 and 7 a.m. that Monday morning. And I didn't open my eyes again for 5 days. By the time I woke up and I came to myself, by the Friday, I had literally gone from size 16 to size 8 in 5 days. My skin pigmentation had gone like 4 shades darker, and my hair was falling off in 5 days. I still can't tell you what it was that caused that thing. What I do know was that it brought me to the place that I realized that if I had died, I would be in dereliction of an assignment that God has given me and I had done nothing about. So I got out of the hospital 24th of June. I'd never forget. And I said, no, 23rd of June. And on the 24th of June, I decided to, I was running a youth fellowship at that time. So I went to that youth fellowship, and my young people were screaming because they knew that something had changed. They saw me, I was frail, I was not myself, but they also knew that something had happened in my spirit, on the inside. And so they stood and they were clapping for a long time, just giving glory to God. And right there in the middle of that, I heard the Lord say, when will you do this conference? And I said, I picked up my phone and I said, July 20th.
Wow.
And that was less than a month. And we had that first conference.
Wow.
It was on a Sunday, so we started about 12 noon, and we were there till about 6 p.m., 7 p.m. The room was packed, and that day I knew that God had called me to this.
Wow.
And we have not looked back since then. Why am I sharing that today? I'm sharing that because I'm thinking about someone today who is also in the precipice and crucible of doing something elaborate and something lavish for heaven. But you have checked your resources, you've checked you've just looked at yourself, and your place is too narrow for what God has called you to. I'm sharing so that you would be encouraged to know that the God of heaven would meet you. It was not easy the first few years of this conference, but he told me from the beginning that it would be an international conference. And I knew it was international, but 2008, I spoke by myself. 2009, I spoke by myself, except for I had a guest come to speak for like 30 minutes, but the entire day I spoke alone. Then 2010, I spoke alone as well for a whole day.
Wow.
Then at the end of 2010, I remember he said to me, get ready for the international version of this conference. And by the next conference, Coach Anna was in Lagos speaking at that conference. Wow. I had my sisters, Audrey and Ini, they were there. They were speaking at the conference. We went from a one-person conference to a multi-speakers conference. Wow. And by 2012, Mama Linda had joined. Wow. And since then, we've not had one edition of Roth that we did not have an international speaker. Wow. Someone must have gotten on a plane to come.
Yes.
Woo. And even when nobody comes to speak internationally, which was maybe just 1 year, we had participants coming from the United States on their own to come. There's been no year since 2011 that someone hasn't come from the US to attend this conference, except for 2020 when there was COVID and nobody could travel.